Hey guys, today we finished the Dyatlov story, a mini-series of 4 episodes fully dedicated to Anatoly Dyatlov, one of the most important people behind the Chernobyl disaster. We previously talked about his early life and the beginning of his career, about the disaster itself, what happened on the day of the catastrophe, and also about his illness due to high radiation doses he acquired. Today we will cover the last part, the Chernobyl trial and Dyatlov's late life. You can check the previous videos at any time you want, as you don't exactly need to watch them in chronological order. So, let's start with the final episode. Chapter 7. The Trial. As you may guess, after the whole incident in Chernobyl went public, the Soviet Union was very much afraid of the international community and its reaction. The USSR mostly relied on its legendary power. That's why the Soviets liked military parades so much. The perspective of being a superpower capable of doing anything, anywhere, anytime was one of the most important parts of the USSR's internal and external policy. You know what they say, doesn't matter if you're strong, it only matters if others see you that way. And Chernobyl could show everyone not only that Soviet scientists brought an unimaginable disaster upon the world, but also that its purported scientific achievements were just pure propaganda. Given that, it could show that the USSR's power was as legit as its technological advancements, mostly overrated. So party officials had to bring justice to those lands, or at least seem like doing so. That's why the staged Chernobyl trial took place so close to the partially destroyed power plants, and that's why they needed to have some public enemy number one. New York Times wrote on July the 8th, day after the trial started. The trial is being held in a makeshift courtroom, in the auditorium of the House of Culture in this town that had 12,000 inhabitants before the accident. It was attended by relatives of accident victims, plant workers, and people brought in to take part in the vast radiation cleanup. The accused, sitting under military guard at a wooden table on the judge's right, were subdued during proceedings that went on more than 4 hours. The bad guys were of course the power plant workers with the management at the front, including power plant director Brukhanov, chief engineer Fomin and deputy chief engineer Dyatlov. From today's perspective, it's clear that the workers made at least a few bad decisions and they pushed the system as much as they could to achieve their goals, but we can't forget how it worked in the Soviet Union. Often a lot of work, research, tests, etc. were completed only on paper to show higher ranking people that the job was done as planned, even if the plans were impossible to fulfill. The trial took place 15 months after the disaster happened, and we can argue if the trial was quickly organized or completely the other way, too late. Nonetheless, the safety was confirmed as the first sarcophagus was completed a few months before the trial. So, what exactly happened there? Despite it being fairly quick for the trial of that proportion and such a high-profile event in the whole Soviet Union, there could be hundreds of pages I could dedicate to this alone. The testimonies, notes, documents, interrogations, imprisonments and many more different aspects of it. As Washington Post wrote in July 1987, the long-awaited trial in Chernobyl, which is expected to last 3 weeks, is the first legal action taken since April 1986 tragedy that killed 31 persons and injured 200, turned the surrounding area into a contaminated wasteland and spewed radioactivity across the European continent. We still may read from this that the official body count was 31 and the total number of injured was only 200. I think that the Soviet Union liked that its official statistics made it to the public even in the United States. The whole trial was a complex situation, yet staged so well that the statistic USSR citizen could easily point out who the ruling party wanted to be the bad guys. But the Soviet Union wanted something else more. Of course, having its own citizens on board was important, yet they always could take care of internal matters with force. The international community was something other. They had to look at least like a state which takes matters of laws and justice seriously. The USSR knew that the entire world was watching the broadcasted trial, especially when it came time for Dyatlov to be questioned. However, Brukhanov and Fomin, as his supervisors, were held responsible too. Dyatlov was seen as the main bad character as he was the one who actually was present at the control room of reactor number 4, and he was the one giving away orders before and soon after the explosion. A perfect person to blame for the disaster. Kind of close to others, not very social, sometimes intimidating. This doesn't make any person bad or good, but it definitely helped the Soviet narrative, to make Dyatlov look like the one who made this all go south, as the British like to say. Each of the defendants seemed to grapple with the answers in his own way. Brukhanov and some others responded in soft voices, barely audible across the courtroom, while Anatoly Dyatlov, a former assistant to the chief engineer, clenched his fists on the table and closed his eyes when answering. And he didn't make it easier, but his emotions and testimonies showed that he truly believed in what he said, an argument that can't easily be discouraged. He denied his crucial role in the disaster, but nonetheless, he took responsibility for some of his decisions he recalled poor or illogical. Yet, the accusations were severe. Dyatlov couldn't deny he was one of the people being present at the control room of reactor number 4 when the disaster happened. He tried to harness the situation, but made several decisions that were used against him later, during the trial. But even though the result of the trial was probably decided before it even began, nobody could argue that he did try to manage the event as well as he could. For example, we have learned that he ordered to shut down other reactors and to contain the radiation as much as possible. It didn't help him a lot though, as his actions were questioned and he was accused of negligence, including multiple counts of criminal violation of safety regulations. During the whole trial, Dyatlov maintained his innocence and argued the prosecutors that the event was caused by many different factors, including poor reactor design, rather than his decisions. While accepting professional responsibility, the defendants believe that they are not guilty of most criminal charges, according to a court report read at the beginning of today's proceedings. There were little journalist presence at the trial, but Soviets made sure that the information will spread around the world. And they were not mistaken. Foreign journalists were rather offish in their reports, as they probably expected the trial was not fully true, and despite the real testimonies and information given during it, they could expect it was overall staged. While internal newspapers were more direct when putting blame, foreign journalists tried to just pass the information given by both sides, the prosecution and the defendants. Brukhanov was not at the plant when it exploded, arriving only at 2 AM according to the court report. Fomin, who came in the wee hours of the morning after the incident occurred, blames the design of the plant and the technical shortcomings for the accident, the report said, and Dyatlov blames it all on a constructional fault. With so many deaths, he said in court today, however, I cannot say I am completely innocent. So, for now, let's sum up the whole trial. It took place on July 1987 and was scheduled for around 3 weeks. It managed to finish without a significant delay. It was over in 23 days, from July the 7th to July the 30th. The USSR organized it close to power plant, probably for several reasons, most of which was aimed to be significant signals to the public. There was a dangerous event, but it's safe now, and the people responsible for it are being questioned near the place where they made so many mistakes. Despite what we see in HBO's Chernobyl, Dyatlov, Fomin and Brukhanov were not the only ones prosecuted during the trial. Overall, 5 plant employees heard sentences of labor camp imprisonment from 2 up to 10 years. Besides the ones most well-known, there was also Alexander Kovalenko, the chief of reactor number 4, and Yuri Laushkin, inspector of state agency. Also, Akimov, Toptunov and Perevoschenko would be on trial too. Their families even got the official letters about the prosecution, but due to the fact that the 3 of them died, it has been terminated. Nonetheless, that was a publicly known fact, so we could say other USSR citizens could view this as they would be found guilty, but they died before the trial started. Not exactly a comforting thought for families of those men. We will cover the trial itself in a different mini-series on our channel because there's a lot to speak about and we would like to look into it more carefully. But now, let's move to the last part in Dyatlov's story, the shortest one. Chapter 8. Prison and Death. Despite his testimonies, Dyatlov was found guilty on all charges. And it shouldn't be a surprise that the designers of the RBMK-1000 reactor weren't considered by court as involved in the disaster. Probably they felt a lot better when the court didn't even took the reactor flaws into consideration and they weren't disputed in detail during the trial. When Dyatlov was in prison, he got more sick. He recovered from acute radiation syndrome earlier, but it didn't change the fact that he acquired huge radiation doses which changed his body and had a great impact on his health. Nonetheless, when he was in the labor camp, which, by the way, was not anything pleasant, he still wrote letters both to his family and friends. He even wrote to other operators' relatives. For example, he tried to describe Toptunov's family, how he tried to restore coolant to the reactor. Before he reached the half of his sentence, he was granted amnesty due to his worsening health, which was because of the radiation exposure. It was 1990, and soon the Soviet Union fell, so probably he felt that he could once more fight for his and his colleagues' reputation. He wrote papers, letters, and even a book in which he discussed not only the technical side of the whole disaster and the RBMK design, but also his own perspective, decisions, and emotions. We can say that despite the trial and its outcome had a great negative impact on his body and mind, he still tried to fight the blame the USSR has put on him. He admitted that he was partially responsible for the disaster, but also that his decisions and actions didn't have a crucial role. Despite this, after his release from prison, he was rejected by the scientific community and also struggled to find work or any kind of support, even though he moved to his hometown in Siberia. A few years later, in 1995, Dyatlov died of bone marrow cancer. He was in Kiev then, so he had to move from Siberia to Ukraine after some time. His death was caused almost certainly by the radiation exposure. Because of that, and many other factors, he's still remembered as a tragic figure. He will be forever one of the most important figures in the Chernobyl disaster. The disaster that happened never before, and forever changed the face of human history. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Watch the previous parts of Dyatlov's story if you haven't done so yet. Wait for another episode next week and write a comment if you want to ask anything or suggest us another subject we could cover on our channel. Take care, stay safe, and see you soon.